Zoom recording. All right, now you have to repeat it.
Hello, I'm calling back to order the February 11th City Council study session. Next up is a continued discussion on public comment and public recognition. I did send everybody a copy of the ACLU fact sheet on Washington State open public meeting. So, and I think this would be a good one for us to put on the city council webpage too. Okay. Kylie, do you want to start the discussion?
Sure. We've been having these discussions, but we also have new members because this is a discussion that started last year.
Mhm.
And so I do want to go do a brief history lesson, first of all. I've been with the city for 10 years, and when I came here, we had a prayer and a pledge at the beginning of the council meeting, and we had public recognition at the end of the council meeting. And over the last 10 years, things have changed. The council, and it's a normal part of your role as council, tweaks your rules and your order of business and where things are. Mayor's comment, mayor's report used to be at the beginning, now it's at the end. Public recognition used to be at the end, now it's at the beginning. Except that now we don't have it at all. So just to let you know that there's a lot of focus on the events in the last couple of months, but really to settle into how your meetings are set up is a process that has been going on as long as I've been around, and I'm sure it was going on before I got here. So I see this as a continuation of that process, and it evolves based on who's on council and what works best for them and the needs at the time. And so
and we're not alone doing this.
Absolutely
like,
not.
Municipalities all over the place are kind of following the same path.
Sure. There's I've mentioned this before, and municipal research services and MRSC is a great resource for all kinds of information. And they have questions that get posed by municipalities. They have little articles that will sort of give you a sense of what's happening in the state and what people are, what challenges folks are facing. And there've been a lot of articles over the last year or two about public comment. And in fact, this month I saw one, February 2026, someone had written in a question about if our city only accepts public comment, do they need to be read aloud? Spoiler alert, they don't. But it was interesting that that was a question that MRSC was getting, and that another city out there, I don't, was making that consideration. And so it's just a normal part of the work that councils do, and a lot of people change their procedures at meetings, and this is a part of that process. So the ACLU article I thought was really great. It came out in 2022. The Washington State Legislature changed the state law at that time, where we cities had to take public comment either in writing or in a written form, or in writing or orally. And the ACLU put out that guidance after that change so that people would understand their take on those things. And so it really is great for kind of explaining it in a Q&A fashion that I felt like is easy to read. And so I think it's great if the council wants to make that available so people can see that information for themselves. So we can go through this slide deck. This is a slide deck that John and Ann prepared to kind of go along with this discussion. It's not meant to be like a white paper or a legal opinion. This is really supposed to guide the discussion. And so let's just get started. So public comment in Washington state law. So next slide. This is state law that just indicates that the council can determine its own rules. Like I said, this is a process that has always been happening while I've been here. I recall us having a secular invocation.
What? When did this happen?
That was whenever Councilman Chamberlain was not a council member yet. But so there have been changes over the years, and that's certainly within the council's purview to do. Next slide. Obviously, our Open Public Meetings Act requires that our meetings be in person and or open to the public, and have a lot of requirements about notices. You guys have all had training on the Open Public Meetings Act. It's one piece of the law that we consider when we're looking at comments and what's required. So this is one of the questions that has come up is, can we just not allow comments on Zoom, right? And so one of the issues is, though, that is that this provision of state law states that if we allow in-person comments at the meeting, then we must allow them remotely if it's feasible. So you might hear, and I've heard there's some other jurisdictions that have said, we're not allowing remote comment, and they say it's not feasible. I don't think that the city could say it's not feasible. We were doing it before. We have the capability. And so maybe a smaller jurisdiction that I don't know, but if it's feasible, you need to provide that opportunity for remote comment if you're going to allow it for a meeting. Next slide. This provision actually was also new, and it applies a little bit differently than you might think. And I don't know that it applies to our notices of public comment, except for like when there's a specific requirement for like the comment period must be open for 14 days. You need to tell people which 14 days those are. So just another requirement that we comply with. And so we saw in our meeting last week that there was a public hearing, and that was something that we allowed public comment orally on. And as we went over previously, we've had public comment on we've had oral comments on public recognition, which is the open mic. We've had oral comments on agenda items, consent, each agenda item as in public hearings. That's when we got that tally that John did on how many minutes were people being allotted for public comment. And it, it was about 10. Yeah. And so that is a combination of comment periods throughout the meeting. And as we stated at that time, we were going to maintain public comment orally on public hearing items because it's generally mandated. So option one, and this is the ones that we've looked at before, is that there be written comment only. And this is noted on the agenda time of like when we will begin accepting comment, and then it'll, there's benefits, and we've all considered these. There's other ones, there's detriments as well. I think that the council's had some really great discussions on this. But the key takeaway, I think, is, and it's outlined in that ACLU article as well, is that a public recognition where there's an open mic, unrestricted period of time where anything can be commented on is not a legal requirement. We can restrict the comment periods to agenda items. That's a content neutral restriction, and it helps the comments stay focused to what the business is being conducted that night. There's not a legal requirement under the Open Public Meetings Act that there be oral comments on our consent agenda or on any of the business agenda items. And so kind of comes from two different places, but so that's where we are with right now with option one. Option two is remove public recognition. And remember, public recognition is the any comment that's kind of the open period, but keep comment on agenda items. That could be verbal comment on consent, general business, and like we've talked about with public hearing. Or it could be some, or, you could do consent agenda, but not general business, or not on consent and on general business. You can also change the amount of time. 3 minutes is discretionary. Some cities could go, lower. And so again, if we're allowing it on every item, some cities just have one period where you have to choose, like you have to use your amount of time to speak to anything that's on your agenda. And so we've always allowed people for each one, but that's something that the council can tweak as well. And then option.
I have a question on that. So this requires, if we allow somebody to speak about, if they have a question about something on the agenda, that also means that we have to allow people to zoom in with questions, correct?
Right.
So the other now there was one thing back there where it said either written or recorded comments. What would recorded comments be?
I think that you could distribute a like a voicemail.
And a
Okay.
video. We've talked about videos, so there could be a video that's shared.
Right. And especially if it was, like that was the kind of voicemail was kind of what I think we were thinking of whenever we put that in there.
Mm-hmm. And that would just be distributed to council the way we normally
distribute.
Yeah. Okay.
And then we have on the right side of that slide just other alternatives to public engagement, and obviously there's more. I mean, there's town halls, there's whatever you guys can come up with. And this is the reverse Mockler. Sorry, this would be moving. Keep public recognition, but put it back toward the end of the meeting. For those of you who are aware, it was Councilmember Mockler that advocated for moving it to the front of the meeting.
Before I was a council.
Before she was the so some cities, I think it was Bellingham, is that right? And Bellingham had moved theirs to the end. And they had also been changing theirs around. They went through a period where they had removed it completely as well. So that's another option. And like I said, we can mix and match some of these as well. And the next slide, I don't know that there is one. Yeah. Okay. So the way procedurally that this can work is you can come up with something tonight. You can review that article. There's actually some interesting things in it as well. Another resource to take a look at, just because there's been some questions about other issues, is the City of Seattle's rules and procedure. Oh my goodness, they have dealt, I think, with everything under the sun over there. And it is comprehensive, is what I would say. It has.
This is their rules.
That's just on like where ours is like, I think a 9 to 12 page document. Theirs is like 50 something pages. It's comprehensive, but it also kind of, you can tell they've dealt with every single situation that you can imagine. And so they have a policy that is available. And that was something, I mean, all of that's published on the MRSC website. So you can actually look at different cities' rules and see how they're handling it. And you'll notice a lot of them have been changing. So there's whatever the council wants to do. Happy to make it happen and put it into a document for consideration. At this point, though, a lot of the authority to run the meeting rests with our council president under the council.
So does everybody want to review the ACLU article and look at MSRC, and then at our next study session, come back with your suggestion of how you would like public recognition handled? And I would like that everybody gives their opinion. If we do that. Rick, how do you feel about studying up and then coming up with your opinion on how you would like it handled?
I'm happy to do that. Yes.
Okay. There's a lot of information out there to absorb.
Yeah.
Anna?
So I think that we received an outpouring of written comments about, for example, the hybrid shelter. And more comments, I think, coming by email than we would have been able to, we'd have been here till like past midnight if that had all been
Correct.
spoken. And I think everybody here read every single one of those emails. And they were interesting and they were nuanced and they were, because people were writing them, they were compressed. And then we did a thing that I was really happy about. One of these options talks about the back and forth between council and the public. And the letter that you authored, went out to went out to everybody who had commented. Is that correct? On January 16th?
No, it didn't. It did not go out to everybody, but
On the website.
it's in the packet, so anybody who reads the packet would read it.
And I believe, is it not published on our website?
The letter that went out, it's published in the packet.
But it's not published on our council page.
Okay, so
No, they have to look at, our packet's on our webpage, so they would have to
I just went to special
follow.
link. Okay.
because so many members of the public don't know that, I think it'd be useful to respond to all the people who commented, and even just like giving them a link, go look at the packet, it's agenda item X. Here's the link to it. In the same way that, like, I recently wrote a letter to all my electeds at state and federal levels, and a couple of them wrote back, and clearly it was a form letter because they're like getting a lot of comments on this same topic. But I think that would help with the back and forth between the public and the council, letting them know that we've read it and we're responding to it.
Well,
Maybe-
we do send a letter that is somewhat tailored to their letter saying, yes, we read this and thank you. And this is a interesting point that we had not seen before. Like I wasn't aware how disruptive a neighborhood food pantry could be if it was in the wrong location and not monitored. And I wouldn't have known that without reading these letters. So I think having that was already sent to people, that they know we're looking at it. I think that maybe putting it on our council webpage might be something that would be workable, but that's a lot of emails that we're asking staff to send out again.
I agree. I think it's easier said than done. You would have to go to every one of those emails individually. Like, there's
Yeah,
no
you
way
can't
just
do a
to
mass.
shoot it out to those people. It doesn't exist in a list.
Yeah, I know it's a lot of staff time. It's just, if even in our tailored replies, we could say, look, here's our website, look on it for responses. Perhaps just like a
Or like-
one-liner.
Like
We
if
have-
it, oh,
Limited functionality right now on what we put on the website.
Okay.
So the
Perhaps in the future.
the packet is the best way, but we can definitely. We do respond, and then we put everyone's email in the packet as well, so people know that in fact it was read by the council. So
And they can read other people's
we
comments
do
too.
acknowledge
Yeah.
feedback.
Thank you.
Kylie?
Thanks.
We could also in that reply maybe add that visit, like, attendance at the meeting, if to watch the council can be by
Usually we do, yeah.
Zoom, and then also that like the minutes will be available on our website at this location afterwards, so they can see, what did they do with my comment? So, I mean, that would, we usually
Yeah,
get
if we
them,
know what meeting is for, we'll usually
Yeah.
recommend.
Denise?
I think it's also a good opportunity, once we come to some decision as a new council around this, for our council president to once again might have some of the same information. It's a fresh letter or memo or whatever, and it's the message from the council president that top of our page again.
Mhm.
But let's wait until after, because there might be some nuances that we haven't decided on. And then we can entertain those kind of
They're not all for
thoughts.
you.
Are you,
I'm serious. I was supposed to pass them out to everybody.
Jane, okay, we're gonna stop because you made the comment. I'm getting one so I can put it back, a Spanish version and the English version, since you made time to call me out in the middle of the meeting.
Yeah, that back and forth though has to stop. I feel sometimes here that our behavior amongst each other is not, what I certainly want to engage in public. So,
So, Rick, did you have something you wanted to say?
I wanted to agree with, and not having been here during some of the December previous, I do believe that I did read all of the comments.
Mhm.
They were very, very helpful in giving me a perspective of the sentiment of the people in the city, especially those in near the site and in those near the former site.
Mhm.
I read all the comments today. I mean, we received some comments late in the day today. I read them. So part of our duty as members is to read their comments, and frankly, they were much more valuable to me than had some of the stress that comes with some of the, that I've seen in some of the verbal comments watching on YouTube. Okay. Seeing those, because I did watch the meetings. So I was somewhat aware of how that went, but
Mhm.
the process that we've got right now seems to be working pretty well as far as getting input on controversial issues that we're facing. So
I think we have some high flyers that we have been getting comments from. And what I appreciate about the letters is, their receipts are there. And that gives us the opportunity, or legal team or whomever, to say, well, this isn't factual because X, Y, Z, which I think is the point of having this copy of the ACLU. So thank you for providing that for us. The ACLU, rights for regarding public comment. There's certainly just a couple, uh, high flyers, but also I guess, I, man, I do miss that engagement that we have. I do miss it. The productive engagement. And like, having been in activism myself, I can appreciate, like wanting to call attention to things, to being a little bit of a disruptor. I've been there. I think that this is a different kind of situation. I I would I'm looking forward to the day that we can feel safe having public comment again. But this is, I think, most disturbing is annoying sometimes are the signs, but the most disturbing are when we get the Zoom bombs. I can put up with some of the other stuff, whatever. But when we get the people that are calling in with obscenities, and that happened, early on in my term. And I appreciate that we have a workaround for that right now, because it doesn't seem like that's a pattern that's stopped. It's something that just recently happened to us this year. And I don't want the youth in our chambers to have to deal with that. That's important to me.
There's also people watching who have sent in emails saying, that they understand, because there is nothing that we can, if we're allowing people to talk in the chambers, we have to take in those phone calls too. Denise?
One thing I'd like to ask about, and I know my sensitivity to this might be greater than some, but I remember I was very uncomfortable watching the mayor having to do his report with Mr. Camacho, behind him. And I was uncomfortable because I could imagine how I would feel. I would not be okay with that. As a small woman, I am not okay with a large man standing behind me doing I don't know what while I'm trying to conduct business at the podium. Is there any way that we can enforce distance rules. I want them there. I don't even mind the signs. It's, um, you know, I think that I don't think it's professional, and I don't think it makes people feel safe to have people standing so closely behind them waving signs.
I think the city of Seattle's rules and procedures address, I think, that concern maybe, and it's talks about lining up behind the person, and it very well could be also a safety issue in keeping the aisles clear in a public space like that. It could also be a distraction issue for the person that's trying to make a comment at the podium, and not having people line up. I'm pretty sure that's in there. I'm not sure quite 100%, but I'm pretty sure it's kind of toward the end. They have they want people to wait in their seat and then approach the podium and not line up. And we've had nights where people have lined up down the middle.
Yeah.
And then if it's a contentious issue, then the reactions from the crowd might be very close in proximity to someone who has a very different viewpoint from them, which we hope is fine. But with some of the things that have been said, it can also be a security issue because we don't have security in our room, and so I think that they address that, and maybe it's something that we could look at as what's the safest place for someone to give their comment from, and also to keep the focus on the person that's giving the comment.
Well,
I think I said something that upset you. Did I? What?
Well, okay. No, you didn't say anything that upset me. I'm just thinking about a protester's rights, because I'm just thinking about, I mean, this is not a specific example that relates to us, but this is just what we've learned through the protests against immigration enforcement officers, right? That people do have a right to stay a certain distance from them, to hold signs, to protest, to be distracting and annoying, call
But
them
a certain
names.
distance, which I believe is 5 or 6 feet.
And so, I just don't want to lose sight of the public's right to protest, because that's such an important foundation. I know that it's annoying, but also there's the right. We might be on the other side of that one day, right?
Michael,
And
But
sorry, are you done?
it's okay.
I was just gonna build on that. So like when we do
Here you
the
go.
Pride
Here's my
Festival,
copy.
we have a designated protest area
Yeah.
because we rent the whole area, the fairgrounds, and we put them out on the street. So if anybody comes in, the sheriff knows what the plan is, and they tell people they have to move to the designated spot. I don't see why we couldn't even just say if you're going to stand, you need to stand behind all the chairs. Maybe we even take out a row of chairs. I don't know. But if you're going to stand, you stand behind. And then you can't hold up anything to block anyone's view. That seems like a reasonable sort of, because obviously if somebody's standing behind a speaker and they're holding something up, they're blocking people's view of the screen and the business.
Thank you.
That's a good point.
Well, one thing that I remember, it was, I think when we were having a lot of folks come in to talk about immigration. And it was almost like we had, the divisions on each side of the room, and people were, getting very upset, and they were, calling each other names across the aisle, and we had people lined up, and frankly, I wouldn't have wanted to be in that audience. So I think we do kind of need to prepare for those situations, and that doesn't stop people from sending us letters or, because most of the people now who are in the audience are listening, and they're listening because they want to know what we're doing and what's going on.
I think the biggest thing too is whatever rules we do, we have to apply them
To everybody.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely. Everything.
I can't come in with come to the 4-H club meeting.
Yeah.
And and then we're like, oh, great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then somebody else has a sign that says,
I hate 4-H.
So,
Yeah.
And so the city of Seattle rules have a lot of, that's why I was saying that some of these issues, I think it would be good if, I didn't want to go, they're 50 pages. I don't want to go over them all with you in detail. I think that would be big. Yeah. Everyone can read those, on their own and take from it what they want. But I think if you do take a look at them, you're going to say, oh, I can see why they have that. Oh, I can see why they have that. And so it's happy to distribute those so people can look at them because it seems like they've kind of thought of everything.
Well, now that you said that, there's something new that's going to come up and they're going to
That's another
go
thing is that
Kylie
technology
Finnell. Why'd you
aspect.
say that out loud?
I think technology is driving a lot of this.
Mhm.
If you are unaware, there's even outside of public meetings, but there are folks that have YouTube channels, and I mean, there's some of them are, that they go to public meetings and they do funny things, and they
Chat goes deeper. Anyway. that's
so
funny.
yeah, and it's a thing. And it can be, there's people who do it, it's more like a comedy routine, and there's people who do it more like
Yeah.
an agitation type, getting a reaction out of people. But that's not something that councils back in the day used to deal with, right? That's new. And so
So does everybody want to just review the information and then at our next study session, we can see if we can come to a consensus of,
Highlight the material.
right, I think it is something like
Michael?
First thing I was going to suggest a general comment about when you started your presentation, the slide, the RCW basically says about maintenance of order. And that's
Yes.
really what we're talking about. We're talking about like not losing kind of order in the room because it feels icky. It feels sometimes unsafe.
Mhm.
It's sometimes hurtful or
Yeah.
hurtful to other people we care about. But that was one thing. Are you feeling that, are you feeling the need to make a decision or what? Well, I guess the decision could be to continue to hold the pause. So,
Right.
Okay.
It could be that, but I want to hear what everybody else feels if they want to continue the pause on public
So
recognition
that's
and,
an immediate decision, not necessarily.
right.
Ms.
So
Vick-
one thing I want to be really sure though is that, and this is mostly for staff, that the agenda not be changed unless it's an emergency. So that people have enough time before our meetings to write in comments. And I think we have to have a deadline of like Tuesday before the meeting at noon for those comments to be made.
And just in a point of clarification too, is this doesn't really apply to our study session, right? We've
Right.
never allowed public comment in our study sessions. And so it's really the things that come out of the study session that are going on to the meeting next week
Mhm.
really need to be said. So people that can, one, watch the study session and hear the discussion and the presentations, and then also have that opportunity for written comment. It's not as critical on the study session agenda because we've never taken public comment. It's great
Right.
if we get it and we can consider it. And we've always,
It's before we take action.
it's before we take action. And so I'm just making that clarification. I think we had a call for public comment to inform some of the discussion that took place on the 28th study session. That was a special circumstance. That was, President Velasquez's letter, and it was to get comments for that study session. But generally speaking, it's going to be what we set as the agenda for next week's meeting and in this meeting right here.
Right. So I have a question. Last week at the public hearing, we took oral arguments. Is that because it wasn't on the agenda in time for people to do written?
No. It was actually a public hearing.
Yes.
So whenever we talk about the three different opportunities for public comment, it was consent, or we had four originally: consent, public recognition, general business, and then any public hearings. And we have a public hearing, according to John's research, about every other meeting on average. And those are requirements under state law. They might have a notice period. A lot of it's land use or budget. And those are still going to be, oral public comment is going to be acceptable because we think it's required.
Okay,
Yes, I have one question.
sure.
Yes, obviously there were some emails about this that that's on Alice's restaurant. the photo and the arrows on the back.
Oh, yeah.
Arrows on the back of each one, indicate
Right,
what
right.
each one was. All right.
So I'll put you on pause as well. But you reviewed those and like what we're looking at still stands. Like,
Oh, yeah, so, well,
I
it
just
it
kinda
does
wanted
kind of
that
go to,
set.
remember the discussion we had about publishing the comment, or publishing the PowerPoints and people taking things out of context?
Yeah.
It seems like maybe some of that, like I said, the PowerPoint is meant to go along with the discussion. It's not a white paper or a legal decision, but we looked at having this handy ACLU article available, and then Jane and I were talking about it. I think it covers all of the points that we've heard people have in the public comments, and so hopefully that will be helpful to provide some clarity.
just kind of wanted that said.
Yeah,
Thanks.
yeah, we read them. Didn't,
Yes, well, I know, but I just
Yeah.
wanted to I wanted to hear our legal advice on other people's interpretations of what they were looking at.
One thing that I've been wondering is when there is comment with on an agenda item or whatever, when it gets off and is no longer germane to the agenda item, how do we cut that dialogue off? Can we turn the mic off at that point?
Sure,
If the president
And-
determines that it's not germane.
sure. There is an ability to do that, and again, I sound like a broken record. Seattle actually has a very interesting they have an elevator process for that, and it might be good to have that written down as guidance for the chair. But it's tricky, and if you look at some of the MRSC articles, some of the Zoom bombers that we've had will start on an item, and then off they go.
We heard it too.
We went through
Mhm.
that this
Yeah.
last time.
And so
It happened with.
it happens a couple of times a year where we're not alone in
Yeah.
dealing with that, and it's not always easy for the chair to tell if the comments germane or not, and it's also not easy to then to apply that germane rule evenly, because someone's always going to say that you're doing it wrong, right? And so it can be difficult to, how this person got to be not germane for 3 seconds, and this person got to be not germane for 5 before they were cut off, and that kind of thing. And so it can be difficult.
So I have a follow-up question with that. One of the things that you had talked about, and I think it was option 2, but don't hold me to that, was the fact that we bring back any sort of oral comments to that. We could do it in different ways. We were doing it by section, or we could just do it as an overarching. If we chose to do something like that, where a member of the public got however many minutes, seconds, whatever it is, to have a comment, but they could comment on anything on the agenda, wouldn't that cut down some of the germane? Because sometimes there's 2 things that kind of touch, or they want to talk about 2 things. Would that help us with because it's either like on the agenda totally and something having to do with city business, or way outside of
Sure.
what we've experienced when it's like, that's not
I
germane.
have a 2 comments. I think it could go either way. So one, the idea with the person would need to hit every issue that they need. So maybe they would stay on topic because they would have a lot of ground to cover. So maybe it would all
It is a
cover.
lot.
However, one thing that's nice for the chair, I think, is whenever the comments have to be related to this one item, it might be a little bit easier to zero in on whether or not, because they're going to be listening. Well, is this related to that consent item that's up here, or is this related to that? And so it might be harder to tell if it's germane or not. And then there's also just the whole thing. I think we're just going to have, from what I can tell and talking to other attorneys and looking at the articles that are happening on MRSC, it's very difficult if someone wants to talk about, for them to take that turn on any item at any opportunity to speak. So I could see it going both ways. I don't know, but you can certainly do that. You can have a public comment period at the beginning, and it could be about anything that's on the agenda. And that would be a content neutral, you know.
So you mean anything on both the consent and general business?
Sure. The other drawback is that for the stuff that's on general business, there's a staff presentation and they wouldn't have that benefit of that at that point. And so sometimes that might answer a question or pique a comment. And so that's kind of, I think, the reason that we've always done it, where the staff person comes up and gives the presentation and then, you know, people have to change.
On it?
Thank you. But isn't that a good argument for having the PowerPoints in the pact? Because then the public would have seen not every single part of it, but they would have a working knowledge of what was going to be presented.
Sure, and they could get that from an agenda bill too. I mean, I think it's definitely a good idea to have. It kind of depends on the PowerPoint. What I would say is if it's going to have enough information on it that it has clarity to the situation, or if it doesn't have enough information on it, that maybe it causes confusion and people thinking that there was information left out.
But that's also a good opportunity for people to ask questions in writing, you know, if they can see it. Because I think for the most part, I agree that most of the PowerPoints should be in the agenda, you know, the packet for people to see that in advance.
Yeah.
Do you mean if it's a PowerPoint that's going to be presented at a council meeting under general business?
Yes.
There's been strong pushback against that by staff, and I want to respect that. The process of fine tuning a PowerPoint, I've been involved with for over many years, and there would always be changes that I would have wanted to make if I'd had to submit it that early. I just want us to remember that we all may want, the public may want something, but a presenter typically reserves the right to, you know, bring their presentation and present it then. It's nice if it's in there.
Will it be, it should usually, well, most things, it'll have been up on the screen during the study session the week before. It might be tweaked for the presentation at council based on some of those comments that come in, because that can be helpful, that then whenever, I think people like that when they see that
that we're listening.
Responsive and we listen and things change between study session and the general business because someone wrote in a comment that someone, we can do this. We need more clarity on this point or something like that. So I'm sure we can work something out, whether it's maybe the PowerPoint as it's presented at the study session gets uploaded and then, but staff's free to make updates.
Yeah, it's not like an ordinance where, you know, if you change a word, it makes a difference.
Yeah. I think that, you know, everyone wants people to have the ability to make thoughtful comments. Although this was actually another MRSC question that I noticed on there is that there is not a requirement that any packet materials be made available ahead of a meeting, which I'm interested in.
Not here.
Yeah, I know. I'm just letting you know that there's actually not a requirement for that. It's just the agenda that has to be posted. Not.
I think one thing just being new to all of this, that I will go back, think about these three options, kind of look through the resources that have been given. But there is also something that it unfortunately is going to put a heavy burden on everybody who has experienced things before, because there will be something that, like, I'm going to go home and think about this. I'm going to do my research. I'm going to have my lived experience with this. However, it is mind blowing to find out the things, all the things you don't know. And it's because a lot of this is lived experience. And if you would have asked me, you know, about public comments prior to the very first meeting that Rick and I were in, where it was like, that was the very first city council meeting, I didn't see that coming. So when I'm putting thought into this, there's lived experience that I haven't experienced yet. So that is one thing, if you guys, you know, when you're giving that that education piece to us too, because, you know, we are new to this. However, I do want to respect the fact that things have been tried. There have been things and you have experienced things that's like, trust me, that's great on paper. It may or may not work based on things. So that is something I'm very open to that feedback.
That's what you get from reading that Seattle document. You get the impression that there's some experience in those words.
So my wondering is, would it be helpful? I don't know if you'd even want to see the council meetings where we had other public comment from when Jeff was in office. Would those links be helpful for you, the dates for that?
If there's large scale experiences that you guys have lived through that kind of are painting why you feel certain ways about things, I do, and it's not even that you need to do the homework to give me that so that I can experience it as you did, but it is that, like, I just wanted to say out loud so that, you know, at least for me, and I won't speak for myself, I'm very open to, I may say something and you're like, yes, on paper, again, lovely, but lived experience, things that have happened here, like, these are the things that, you know, may have come with that. So I just want to make sure that's open and, like, please give me that feedback that if I do come with something, I'm also coming with it very fresh.
Well, January 7th was a pretty good indication.
That was a good
Moderate.
Very-
All right, it was a moderate. We had a horrible couple of Zoom bombs. When we had youth in the crowd, they were reading from propaganda. I mean, it was bad.
Yeah.
So
So no, that's the only thing, like, that's that side of the pendulum, and that's like, wow. But there's also things that are just, you know, like we've experienced. If you would have asked me if we were doing everything in writing, you're like, oh, you know, I don't know how I feel about that. But then getting it, it's like, oh wow, that is a wealth of knowledge
Yeah,
that, like, somebody has been given longer than
Counterintuitive.
whatever. Yeah, and so
Yeah.
those are the things,
A surprise.
it's that lived
Yeah.
experience that I would have had a different opinion before, but now that I've experienced it, it's that. So that was my only thing, is just being very open to, if I come with these comments, letting everybody know here at the table that if
We'll
I
let
say
you know.
something and you're like, hey, I love it, you know, but however, this is what I'm.
I think probably everybody around this table feels comfortable.
Okay,
Mhm.
just, you know.
I think so.
There's been a lot of factors that have, you know, weighed on different people throughout the modification of this. I know that we had some violence against elected officials that came up in some of the discussions as, you know, being a factor that increased concern about the meetings where there was heated cross comments during the meeting, and, you know, that was a concern. There's we a few years ago adopted code that prohibits weapons, you know, at the, you know, and that was something that the legislature had passed. And kind of the idea that we have that the need for that kind of thing is a concern, and you think about. So I'm just saying, there's been so many things over the years that have kind of led us to where we are right now. It's impossible to say, oh, it was this thing. Or, this particular meeting. It's been a lot of things. And it's not just the experiences within the chambers for Bremerton. It's hearing about other stories. It's seeing things on the news and what other people have experienced.
Yeah.
Kind of weighs in on everyone's.
And it's feedback from the community too. Because
Yes,
they're
of
watching
course.
this, so we are going to get the emails that we get of like, hey, I don't know if you've thought of this or these things. Those are all things that throughout all of this, I will be doing my due diligence in this, my soul searching, my what I think is best, but very much open and welcoming those comments.
I appreciate the validation. I think we're told we're supposed to be tough, we're supposed to be strong, we're supposed to put up with this, and I've said it too, you know. And then at the same time, the dichotomy is that there is very real violence that happens against elected officials. So, anyway, thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay,
We'll
so,
be ready for you. 2 weeks
Everybody-
from today.
okay, 2 weeks from today, if everybody,
Send out the homework assignment.
Yeah.
Read your 50-page.
yes, Rick.
I was just gonna say that a couple times, not to sound like a broken record, but I did, you know, we're on YouTube.
Yeah.
And so you can go out there, and I would, you know, I'd move bar down the bottom to see where I want to be. And so if you were interested and they're all out there by date, if you wanted to see some of the previous examples.
Mhm.
They're readily available. Now, I want to say not many people watch it. Just so you know, our last meeting, the council meeting from 11, today's 11, from 4 February,
Mhm.
had 28 views.
Mhm.
That's a lot.
But then BCAT, that's going live. Yeah.
Nico, what the numbers were for BCAT. I think live, maybe people are watching it, but once it goes through its conduit, whatever the company is, it reports, it's the same one that used to report our planning commission meetings. You can tell if there's a hot topic because you'll see 100 views. And
Oh,
you
so
notice-
just scroll through.
Are you
past
talking about
pages where
when
you
somebody
see a lot
else
of
is
views.
recording it?
No,
Okay.
that's official, the city's official recording.
Well, that's just city council. It's not study session. Keep that in mind, because those go away after 30 days, and those are the
Well-
real meaty ones. People should be listening.
Some
All
of
I'm
us
saying is,
are
if
on
you're trying to
media.
see what the behavior of some of the past meetings are,
It's not a bad tip to scroll through, and if you see a meeting that has a significant jump in views, there's probably something. that
there might have been
happens with that.
something.
Yeah.
So,
And some of our
Okay.
names come up.
Are we,
yeah,
everybody done
Yeah.
with this discussion? Thank you, Kylie.
Yeah. Thank you, Coach.